Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from the beautiful continent of Africa. And you are all welcome to 3600 Seconds with Industry Leaders. I am your host, as always, Patience Abili, and today we are joined by the incredible Alexandra Comfort again. You remember her? She once graced our studio and with the mental health package. So today we'll be talking more about it, but narrowed down to our precious men. Men, you are precious to us. At the end of the day, we are going to make sure you feel that truly we see you as precious souls. So Alex is a renowned clinical psychologist and one of the foremost mental health advocates in Nigeria. Together, we are going to discuss the topic we've already advertised to you, which is breaking the stigma around men's mental health. So much stigma, especially for men living in Africa. Yes, most of the examples might be coming from Nigeria, but Alex is in Nigeria. But when we talk about what is going on in Nigeria, it also applies to other aspects of Africa because similar DNA runs through our veins. So, Alex, you are welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Pinshen. It's actually a delight to do this once again. I know I've graced this show one time. So it's actually a
Yeah.
delight to want to do this again, particularly as it concerns men's mental health. And this month, the month of June, is Men's Mental Health Month. I know a lot of persons do not know and they are not even talking about it, but I believe that because of this conversation, a lot of persons will get to know, be aware, and then want to know more about men's mental health as we break this stigma together. Thank you.
Hello.
Oh, okay, hi Louise. Can you hear Madam Patient? Stop hearing her. I wouldn't know if it's from my end or her end. Hello, can you hear me? I think she's saying something, but I can't hear her.
Yes, yeah. Can you hear
Louise?
me now? It's like my volume.
Patience.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Can hear you now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I was introducing Vivian to Alex, of course, to our
Okay.
beloved viewers. She's co-hosting the show today.
Hi.
So that's Vivian Aludeze, my pretty co-host. So we have a clinical psychologist to for us, and she's really breaks so much barriers concerning mental. There are so many things that men at home, which in sincerity is not working well for them. But I don't need to do much of the talking. That's why we have the professional here with us. And she's also going to teach us that
Yeah.
better manage men. All right. So, Alex, can you please share with us your insight on the current state of men's mental health and how we can work, together to break down the stigma surrounding it?
Okay, so thank you once again. So basically about the stigma surrounding men's mental health. The one talk about stigma, we all know and would agree that stigma is a set of negative beliefs. It has to be highlighted that negative is nothing positive about stigma. And then attitudes or stereotypes about something. In this case that we are talking about men's mental health. You know, I started a series on Monday called Mental Health Professional to Grow. You've been following on LinkedIn and other of my social media platforms. And so we've had a lot of talk about how different mental health concerns present in men that quite varies from the traditional ways that we see everywhere and then implement. And so it's usually not far-fetched. It's just that people don't want to call it the name that they are. They keep running around the whole thing, shadow boxing, and not giving it the name that it's supposed to be. And so when it comes to stigma around mental health in Africa or Nigeria, spiraling to other parts of Africa, it revolves around a lot of things, some of which I will highlight today and maybe subsequently we'll get to talk about them generally. So one of those factors that contribute to stigma surrounding mental health in Nigeria and in Africa is cultural expectation of masculinity. So do I even need to explain that? It's clear, it's English, and it's understandable that there are a lot of cultural expectations of masculinity, where they're expected to be stoic, where they're expected to behave a certain way, so they don't want you to complain, they don't want you to whine, they don't want you to express positivity, they expect you to always man up,
Yes.
men don't cry, you should be like this, you are a man, you should chin up, stop behaving like a woman. And I think one of the most deceiving mind myth as well that have spiraled for a very long time is the myth of saying that women are emotional, men are logical. And then I would want to remind us that when we all came to Earth, when we were given birth to, according to senior brother Sigmund Freud, who propounded psychoanalytical theory. So he will tell you that we all came as an open slate, and so society formed us, society we found ourselves, our church environment, our parents, our siblings, the village, formed us. So they created different perceptions of, so when people train you that way, they say, okay, for you to be a man, you're supposed to cry, you're supposed to be logical. For you to be a woman, you're supposed to be emotional, you're supposed to be crying. So they created those norms, they created those cultures, not like it was originally part of the map. And so the reason why we differentiate between gender and sex is that sex is male or female. Gender is what the society tells you that male or female is supposed to be. Are you getting it? So when you're trying to define gender, same thing, you say, okay, gender is supposed to be opposite side, gender is supposed to be here and all that. That's society for you. So cultural expectations of masculinity is actually affecting how men respond to mental health or treatment of mental illness. Another factor that also plays a role in the stigma of men's mental health is social norms. We have this, at any point where you stop hearing me, you could say something to me. So we have social norms that continuously reinforces silence. Social norms that continuously reinforces silence. I've mentioned some common phrases that you always hear, something like man up, something like real men don't cry, And then I heard one recently that a man's care is supposed to be only for death. And I was like, are you serious? So somebody tell you a man is supposed to cry, a man is supposed to cry only when there is death. And say, like, who propounded this theory? So you hear those things that form. So those kind of statements reinforces silence, reason you would rather have a man die than talk about his mental health. Right. So today I wrote about suicidal ideation. You might want to read it later.
That,
So you would rather have a man cross the line and tell you he's having problems or challenges. It's even mild now because currently in this generation and time, people are beginning to open up. Men are beginning to talk. Men are beginning to be a bit vulnerable. But then you still see the subtle silence in between. You see it on social media, you see it typically with your brothers, your fathers, your uncles, that are with you at home. So it's not like it's a cliche, it's something that is in our very before. Another factor that contributes to stigma surrounding men's mental health is religious and spiritual beliefs. Religious and spiritual beliefs. How many of your pastors want to tell you that they are going through mental health concern, even when it's glaring? How many of your deacons, for persons that are Orthodox, are still doing Orthodox church practice and all? How many of them want to tell you? So religious and spiritual beliefs reinforces the stigma surrounding mental health. So seeing in the religious setting, people see mental health challenges as a sign of spiritual attack. Oh, I wouldn't have known until one of the days in the clinic, we had this patient who was being managed for schizophrenia. And so when we had a family session, so we kept asking, okay, what did you do to, why did you bring this not a problem? Why did you bring them to clinic? And so the man clearly told us that he doesn't have a problem, that each time he has these problems, he knows that it's God telling him what to do, and if he prays, those problems will disappear. I get it. But this was a clear case, all symptoms complete, that he was having a severe mental health condition. But then he believes that it was God redirecting the steps. So there's a lot of spiritual, and religious belief that sponsors and support this stigma. Like I said, some people, some religion believe that mental health is a spiritual attack, while others think it's a moral weakness. One time someone was praying in church and the person said, if you have depression or anxiety, that means you don't have the Holy Spirit. And I keep saying that every time I have an opportunity to talk about religious and spiritual beliefs that surrounds or sponsors certain mindset about mental health. That's a very, 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 very wrong notion. That for you to say you have depression or you have severe mental health condition, that you have a moral weakness, it's not true. Although if you want to come from the area of guilt, there's a normal guilt and there's what we call psychotic guilt. So you want to come from the area of guilt where certain things they say if they teach you in church, do not do this, do not do that, and so when you go against it, it is only normal psychological reaction for you to feel guilty and reiterate your step. But in a case where you do not reiterate and you stay there for a very long time, that's where it can lead to psychotic guilt and even depression on the same page. And so another factor, so okay, so instead of telling people to seek help, seek professional help, get to meet a counselor, get to meet a psychologist, get to meet a psychiatrist, or seek this help, they would rather tell you to pray and fast. So instead of seeking medical help, they're telling you to pray and fast. And so usually I used to tell my clients that if I'm seeing you for depression, I'm seeing you for anxiety, I'm seeing you for any case, subclinical or clinical, you are not going to be fasting. You have to be eating. Because you starving yourself have a way of impacting the chemicals in your brain that as a result causes certain symptoms to you that affect your mood particularly, affects your mood. And so you go about saying you're depressed or you're just hungry. And at some time, I think around election time in Nigeria 2 years ago, when was our election? That was 2023 or so,
That was
right? So at some point,
yes.
people were shouting and anxiety, anxiety, and then it was like a usual trend. So I said, I think at this junction, all of you need to go and do H. pylori test. Let's know if I really have anxiety and if I have ulcer. It's what it is because sometimes, of course, all the time, not even sometimes, of course, all the time when people show up for certain cases, you have to rule out all physical illnesses, all physical concerns before you say it's person has a mental health condition because there are certain physical health concerns that poses or present symptoms that look like mental illnesses. So the reason you have to
Mm,
rule out every physical health condition before saying this person has XYZ mental illness. I don't know if that made any sense at all. And so another
of
factor
course.
that keeps impacting how people, particularly men, respond to mental health treatment or seeking help, professional help when it comes to their mental health is economic pressure. Prior to this
Mm,
time, and even if you put your ears down, you still hear people say things like mental health concerns are luxury. People say,
yeah.
there's someone will say, I've not finished treating malaria, I don't need to pay for therapy. Exactly. I've not finished treating typhoid, I don't need to pay for therapy. Something that this can solve, something that if I don't think about it can solve them. So people just have a way of masking and running away from the main point. And truth to be told, I'm not trying to defend any system. Psychotropic medications are actually expensive, right? And then even
Yeah.
psychiatric admissions are actually expensive. So in a case where you don't have the way without to manage that, as economic challenges, there are certain finances you can't pull out. You can imagine how bad it can get. It can actually spiral really, really bad from that. Sometimes I understand with people that it's not like they don't even know that they need to seek professional help. But why some cannot or do not know where to seek it from, the others have been affected by economic challenges, socioeconomic challenges. Let me use that word in general. So I've mentioned some factors that contribute to stigma, that surround stigma around men seeking mental health support or help. I mentioned cultural expectations of masculinity. I've mentioned social norms that keeps reinforcing silence. I've mentioned religious and spiritual beliefs. I've mentioned economic pressures. And um, so how does this stigma, now I'm teaching, right? So we'll have to have a conversation because I just go through what I prepared to. how does this stigma affect men? Aside from the fact that, oh, it can scale from something mild to something very serious, because I usually tell people mental health is a continuum. It's actually a very complex continuum. It's not like a one continuum. It's a complex continuum that moves from well-being distress to emotional distress down to mental illness. And so in the case where there's a stigma surrounding professional help or whatsoever kind of support, you can imagine how fast, or even if it takes slow, because sometimes when you go to therapy, you ask you, okay, at what stage are you now? You're something you want to genuinely think you are. Then realize that you are in the seven. So the first step you're working on bringing you to the five from the seven. So at least if you be in the middle, then before moving you to two and maybe to one, if time permits and all that, if you're able to scale things, when I know that it's not going to be easy, right? But then in a case where
Yeah.
you've moved from one to nine to 10, and you're still feeling no need to see someone or seek professional help, then it becomes a problem. So how does stigma affect men? Number one is emotional isolation. A lot of men emotionally isolate. So they are very bubbly all the time, very excited, taking this, providing for family, some not even providing and all the time. But then you see that they cannot pay it the victory, but in the because they don't want to face as being a weakling or being a weak man. So they emotionally isolate. They can tell you every other thing about if you're sitting out, they can tell you about the they can tell you about vodka, they can tell you about football, they can tell you about food. Then just about women, they will never talk about what is currently disturbing them emotionally or mentally. That's because stigma has impacted greatly on men in Africa. Another effect stigma has on men is delayed help seeking. Delayed help seeking. So even when they feel that they need the help, people will not go for it. Till it gets to a crisis point, people will not go for it. And so it also have impact on families and communities. Like the patients I was telling you about, and then several others that we've heard. You see them using machetes to chase their children, chase their wives, some even kill their loved ones. Some resign from their work. Upon every severe mental condition, there will be visible career nosedive. So you see somebody that was one time working in one very big company, spending around the so yeah, because I do not think that person because giving me one issue to another. I'm not saying that persons who do not have good reasons as to why they want to be something. And now we are talking about you guys' mental health, right? So this stigma also affects because domestic violence and domestic violence. So imagine me as a man suppressing all of my thoughts, all of my emotions, not sharing, not saying anything. I'm angry, I'm not saying. And someone offended me, I'm not saying because I don't want to put as a vulnerable man or as a victim. And then just one day, because whether you like it or not, just one day your mind will revolt. And on that day your mind revolts, you are dividing somebody's head with a check or stabbing someone with a check until the law enforcement agencies that you're like, this man is wicked, this man is wicked, you should go to hell. People always have things to say, but then over time you don't know the emotional distress that contributed to all of this. So, yeah. So how do we break this stigma? I'll pause at that point and see if you have other questions to ask if you want to talk about how we need to break the stigma surrounding mental health, particularly because this month is Men's Mental Health Month. However, very few persons are talking about it. And now let me just clear the air. When it comes to suicide, do you know more men complete suicide than women? More
Yeah,
men
so I
complete
heard.
suicide.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I
because
heard.
women attempt to learn the different stages of the different stages of suicidal when they say somebody died by suicide, like the complete suicide. There's the gesture stage where you make a certain statement like I'm tired of life, I want to end it, what am I even doing and all of that. There's a suicidal attempt, there's a post attempt, there's a post suicidal attempt, that means you're already taking something. Now you're looking for help. But maybe They might be helped, they might be not helped. Then the attempt is you've already consumed something, then the post-suicidal attempt, and then die by suicide where you complete your suicide. Now, why more men complete suicide than women? Like I said, women attempt more, but more men complete. So why more men complete suicide is because they live more dangerous things, if that should be the word, or more harmful things that they use more, and they can decide to shoot themselves. They can decide to, drag themselves into a truck. More hazardous means than women. Women will have to sit and think and look, oh, should we do this one? Should we not do this one? It is very rare to hear that a woman hang herself on a ceiling fan. But it's very possible to see a man hang himself because he's willing to do anything extra to just end it. And of course, when we talk about masculinity in this part of the world, we're looking for the strong, strong things, the hard, hard things, right? So it's easier, the hard things will move you faster than the simple things, right? So I think with all I've said, we have other things to share in the course of the conversation before we talk about breaking this stigma around men's mental health.
Hmm, that's really interesting and quite sobering as well. The statistics will not stop shocking. More and more of the reality keeps flashing before us. Well,
Mm,
before I go further to say what I really have in mind and what I wish Alex can help us expand on further, I would like our audience to know that please, if you have questions, it's time for us to hear you. If you have questions, kindly drop them on the chat, okay? So that it won't be as if we are the only ones trying to monopolize Alex with our questions and our concerns. We are men's mental health. This is a very serious issue because ideally these men are meant to be the ones who work, keep the home together, and all that. For those who have families, I'm talking about who have built a nuclear family. They've been able to take themselves out of their family homes. They started a family for themselves. It is not funny if their family they've built would lose them for any reason. It wouldn't be funny to have the family members watch them, parting ways with life. Even while alive, they've lost them. It won't be a funny thing at all. That is why this mental health is very serious and we should give it utmost attention. Now, I'm looking at we elaborating, okay? And you being an authority in this field, you have to do justice to that field on our behalf. Elaborating more on how societal expectation have been impacting men's mental health. You've given the statistics, which of course is true because recently, I think that was towards the end of last month when last month was like General Mental Health Month, but this
yeah,
month there's specific there is a reason why. So we should take it seriously for them to be specific on the men. Last week, a sad news came, about a young man who killed himself. This is somebody that even the family cannot really point what would have led to his death. Because, yes, he's the kind of person who suffers and smiles. I would think suffering and smiling makes one a man.
mm,
I guess this is also tied down to some of the societal expectation, especially here in this part of the world where we find ourselves in. Now, there are some common misconceptions about men's mental health, which I would love you to address. Maybe I can just mention a few.
okay,
And
please go
this
ahead.
this this stray bullet hit both the married and the single. If a man is single up to a certain age, there are some nicknames they give to them. Not every
Okay.
man have that mental to withstand being bullied, because that is a form of bullying, whether we understand that or not. You hear
Mm-hmm.
them speak to this man as if he has failed in life for not contributing his own quota, to society. It's like we have a message. Um, I hope that is the question. I wouldn't know. Okay. All right. Let's see. Someone from the audience seems to have dropped a message for us.
Yeah, from
Let's
LinkedIn.
see.
Um,
Yes, that's from LinkedIn. That's from LinkedIn.
okay.
If one is having a mental health
Yeah, it's from
issue,
LinkedIn. From True.
All right. Okay. So, can
If I want to
you?
read it out,
Okay, please.
someone reading it out
The
for
message.
us.
The message is from who, please? I can't see her name
Okay.
clearly.
It's from
Please,
Mr. Andrew.
Andrew Iyirogo. Andrew
okay.
Iyirogo. It says if one is having a mental health issue and they would like to open up for support or to have someone listening, what are some of the ways one may try to approach? One may try to approach family members for support when family members sometimes shut you down.
Okay,
That's
so
the
Hmm.
question.
the last line is what we've been talking about all this while. So the family members probably have their reasons why they're shutting you down. In which socioeconomic factors might not be completely eroded from those reasons. And so we usually say when we talk about recovery, when people are trying to recover from mental illnesses, we usually talk about their support system. And family is supposed to be one of the ultimate when it comes to this recovery capital. But in a case where the family is not as supportive as what you just clearly asked here, there's always a place out of home. There's always comfort out of home. Reason we usually say that we build relationships away from our birth family. When I mean birth family, like your brothers, your sisters, your mother, your father. So you build relationships, you have friends outside. Some friends are even more home than your family in some cases, in some people's cases. So
Very,
you might
very.
not, yeah, you might not completely fool your family because they might not have this knowledge that you are having or even had, and then they might have their own reasons why they're shutting you out, which cannot be completely eroded and which we are not even clapping at them for doing that. But if your family is not helping, that's why you have counselors, you have psychiatrists, you have psychologists, you have therapists, you have friends and loved ones, well wishers. They can offer you the psychosocial support that you think you need from family. Yes. They can offer you the
Hmm.
psychosocial support that you think you need from family. Because the truth is family will not always be there. And family will not always be aware. If you have an
Hmm.
aged if you have aged parents rather, have aged parents, let's say they're age 70, 80, and you have aged siblings as well, probably you're the last child, and you are a millennial and they are like World War II or boomers generation and all just trying to use the generation thing now. And the persons don't believe in it. Now there are high chances that those persons do not believe in what you call mental health, right? So
Hmm.
they do not
Yeah.
believe in what you call mental health now, even though mental health has always been there. But they call it peace of mind. They call it resilience. They call it truth. So we now give it a bigger name, mental health. So one of the factors that might be influencing them offering you support is they do not understand from what standpoint you're coming from. They do not even understand what mental health is all about, not sort of understanding your vulnerability. They do not understand that. They do not have the insight or the knowledge of what you're currently going through. So if you're going through clinical depression or paranoia or schizophrenia or whatsoever, the best bet any aged parent who wants to do for you is to bundle you and take you to church. Yes. If you're having a severe mental health condition, the best bet any aged person wants to do for you right now is to bundle you and take you to church. And they will flog you and pray for you. I get it.
Hmm.
So of course them one of the caveats to this thing is they do not understand what mental health is all. The second reason why they might not be helping you is they don't know how best to help. Yes. The second reason why they might not be helping you is because they don't know how best to help. One is they don't know what mental health is for. Secondly, they don't know the best approach to help you. Thirdly, they might even be dealing with their own stuff.
Hmm.
And because they're not opening up, they're expecting you to also not open up. And then we cannot
Yeah.
completely rule out social economic factors. It's
Yeah.
so sad then Africa, somebody said if you don't have money, you cannot be a member of your family. It's so sad. Even if it's so sad to talk about, so if you're coming from a background that has very low economic strength, telling them to take care of you, take care of the conditions in certain way might feel like the pouring water in the back of the rock, and it should just spill over. So those are the factors that are contributing to them not wanting to help. You get, but they don't even understand. And then, like I said earlier, if your family is not helping, or that's why we usually capitalize on professional help. Professional help means seeking help from professionals. And I've mentioned the previous professional, I've mentioned help from psychology, psychiatry, I've mentioned counselors. And then the good thing is you can always utilize your religious gathering. In Christians or in the church, for example. The church, every structured church, I mean, well-structured church has medical units. Every well-structured church has medical units. And of course, most of those medical units are made up of general practitioners. It's still help. There's a few that have addiction counselors. But then in all of those structures, you still see people that are into addiction and addiction in the church. You still see counselors in the church. You still see medical doctors in the church. So you have to utilize that platform. If you meet them, if they cannot offer solution, they will guide you on how to get solution. I don't think I made any sense because the person listening, if your family cannot help you out, utilize your religious gathering. Even if you're Muslim, or wherever you gather yourself and say this is where you pray, this is where you utilize it. Open up to the counselors there, open up to the doctors there. If they cannot offer you direct help, they will link you to a professional that can offer you direct help. And if worse comes to worse, I know of churches who pay bills for their church members to get help. So yes, yeah, cases like that where you need their help. And then you can also utilize your friends. Utilize your friends. If you're a good friend, you should have a good one good friend. Utilize your friends. And then I know there are several other NGOs that do mental health that you could check for them and then reach out to them. They offer counseling services. However, I think they can go into medications. But I doubt this is severe mental health concern. But if it is, the best fit first is to try to pick up. When you get to pick up, you grow in getting help. That's what I can say.
Hmm. Thank you very much. I hope Mr. Andrew from LinkedIn, your question has been answered. If you feel you need further clarification, feel free, sir, to drop your question or let us know how the response have made you feel so far. But from this question that Mr. Andrew just asked, a lot of thoughts were running by through my mind. Family's involvement. Sometimes it appears like this might be the major reason. All right, viewers, our internet issues struck again, so
Yeah.
sorry for that. That very brief break. Welcome back, Alex. So it appears like some things happening in most families. Some families plays a huge role on why men are experiencing the struggling with mental health issues. Most of the unnecessary demands that these
Mm-hmm.
men are met. Okay, I noticed, I observed that in some homes,
Mm-hmm.
once you have a child, we only see the privilege they get. Ah, you have a man, you have a man, you have a male child. Oh, that's good. Now your legs are strong in the family and all that. And the young man will be enjoying the glory, the benefit, not knowing what is going to wait for him as he is aging. So
Mm-hmm.
much responsibility, especially in this part of the world where parents automatically see their children as their retirement plan.
Yeah.
Early, yeah, not even the actual official retirement plan. Once you get to
Mm-hmm.
the age of 8, woe betide you if your neighbor or a distant relative son of your age, maybe by privilege, chance upon
Doing better.
something, yes, something that maybe might be bringing finances because most of the problems are financially related. Now,
Yeah.
pressure will be You have legs like him, you have two hands like him, you also have the same hair. Why can't you also go out there and be bringing money for the family? Take responsibility. In most cases,
Okay.
you find these young boys going out there to work, sacrificing themselves just so that their family can, have a face. Some of these young men started paying house rent as early as 16.
Yeah.
They spent their whole life working. That's on one hand. Okay, now let's just say if they are from a place of privilege, maybe their parents have set things up for them, sent them to school, trying to establish them for tomorrow, at least for them to be able to start another family unit, let the family is expanding. And unfortunately, the young man is not able to hit at a decent means of income. Maybe start a business or get a good job.
Mm.
Care is not taken. Many of them are already being treated as lepers in their homes.
Yeah.
If they're younger ones come, any younger ones that start bringing money, because we do see it. Sometimes it's being played as kids, but these are the reality.
Yeah.
If you even if you're as a family, as a man, you're not producing or you're not bringing money, you have no say. Where your younger ones with the money to give up. And you expect the mental health of these men to remain the same.
Mm.
And we keep wondering a lot of persons are going to cyber crimes and all that, in as much as we are not excusing them. But it's good for us to at least find out the root cause of most of these things. And
Yeah.
I
Okay.
believe
So.
these are family bound issues. So the question
Yeah.
that Mr. Irongo asked really is valid because the same person that is struggling, you don't know the scope of his heart, his emotion. Some men are really emotional, but they are scared to open up because they are meant
Mm.
to be hard men, you know. So when such a young man wants to seek support from his family, how will they ever want to listen to him apart from shutting him up? Because they will see him as a disgrace.
Yeah.
That son
True.
wants to disgrace. Other people's sons are
Yeah.
there. Okay, we got a feedback from Mr. Irongo, and he's thanking us for his anyway. It is you is thanking for um, taking good care, doing justice to the question he asked. You're welcome, Mr. Irongo. So this is what I'm talking about. Yes,
Okay.
there
So
are so many.
we're supposed to have this call. We're supposed to have this
Yeah.
call earlier, and I thought I was going to be in a radio station to talk about mental health and crime. And so this was the same challenge or well, how do you mind-proof yourself against crime in a society that crime looks like the order of the day? In a
Mm.
society that crime looks like the order of the day, because how do you explain that you don't have a job that will cater for your family? Like you rightly said, in normal Africa tradition, culture, they believe that when your children grow up, your parents are supposed to eat the fruit of labor. Now, fruit
Mm.
of labor, you have a parent that is ill, like critically physically ill, that could affect your mental health, not even talk about the financial part first. If you have a sibling that is ill himself, critically ill, you're taking care of and all of that. So you can see that a lot of things that we do right now, we are responding to our existing traumas or deep-seated traumas. So all of us are trying to tilt towards survival and ignore significance. Reason you see very few people doing free things in this country now. Because the free things are not like free, but you barely would see anybody that wants to do anything completely free for you because to them, if I do everything free, how will I survive? So everybody is on the edge. Everybody's trying to survive. Nobody's trying to put significant in front. Only very few persons that are doing that. And even those persons that are doing it, sometimes they feel laid back because that will be like, oh, maybe you're being stupid. And so they start thinking about, am I actually stupid? Do I really not know what
Mm.
I'm doing? So, sometimes back to trending on social media that parents should plan their retirement plan before giving birth to children and all of that. And so people started calling it woke culture. People started calling it woke culture. Now, the thing is,
Ah,
people don't want to call things what they are. As it is currently, the economic strength of the nation and everything, societal strength of the nation is impacting on everybody. Now imagine you just coming out of the four walls of the university, not knowing how to where or which way to turn first to get your feet. Normally, as an adult, especially that when you come out, so you start sorting yourself out, you should be able to rent an apartment, see how to get working at all. But then you're coming out to have younger siblings to send to school. You have other things to take care of. And you think it's not affecting anybody. It's affecting you mentally. That's why people come out to say, parents should take care of themselves. Nobody is retirement plan here. And people went about calling it woke culture. Yes, it sounds woke because in the African setting, African tradition, children have always taken care of their parents at old age. But let's look at it. Let's be more practical. Let's be more pragmatic now on this call. Looking at the average Nigerian, the average African, how many percent of Africans are really doing well, take care of themselves, take care of their siblings, take care of their parents? How many of them? How many of them are really doing that well? So, like you said, we're not cutting flack for persons that are going into South Africa, but just take a look at it. I was discussing with my younger sibling this morning, I was laughing. He say, if person they share updates for you go to say
Mm.
they until you start to do am. So you might just say,
Yeah.
there are many things to do, start talking on social media, start doing this. That's why you see people share their news on social media. So social media seems like a way monetization is everywhere, so anyone can get money, you can just say yeah, I can get 3 million. But for you to get that 3 million, you must do some crazy things that is away from your morals to actually get there.
Yes. Yes.
And then if you don't want to do it, you have to work yourself out for years to build to the point where you start aiming to that extent. And that is the process. That is the work that everybody's trying to run away from. This generation is trying to run away from the process. They're trying to run away. They're trying to remove the process and just move from A to Z without any other alphabet, which is really not helping us. It's really not helping. However, the case of taking care of family members, taking care of older parents and all, I think it's a thing that will take a long time for it to be eroded into the African society. Except this generation takes it very intentional upon themselves to actually have a retirement plan and not their children. Because a lot of people, let me know it myself now, a lot of people they're actually having high functioning depression. They're living with depression, they're living with
Mm.
paranoia, they're living with some level of delusions because they just have to keep moving. There's
Yeah.
a false expectation around their neck that they need to live up to. And so if you're not living up to it, then you're not doing well. And then like what you mentioned, the cases where mothers and fathers don't know how to prioritize the respect they give to their children. In the African
Mm.
culture, we share respect. We respect our children very well. So we respect the position in the order of birth or the birth order. We respect it so much. So if you're a first child, you're a first child. The second child, you're a second child. The third child, you're a third child. And so you expected that you should respect your elders, isn't it? As an African, culturally sensitive individual, they should respect. There's no big boy or big girl when it comes to African culture as regarding the order of birth or birth order. Now, in this case you just mentioned, okay, I said when I was started this call that it's so sad that in most African homes you cannot be a member of that family if you do not have money. And I kid you not, that is the truth now. So reason you see
Mm.
somebody somebody will say because we dey bring money, we live to send my younger because my younger brother dey bring money, we need to send my younger brother go wash plate to call me so the elder brother to go wash plate because of say my younger brother dey bring money. Are you getting? Are you getting that point? And you get what I'm saying? So because
Uh,
the younger brother is paying out, maybe paying part of the rent or doing something. And so we no longer share the respect with you. Worst of
mm.
all, worst of all, if the elder sibling, if the elder sibling is actually doing something, trying to meet up, working, it's reasonable to understand that this person is actually putting out effort there. They're not just living about they're not sleeping. And that doesn't happen that way. How many persons want to think they're working? They're only calling the name of the person that is bringing money. You get it? So because of that, everybody in the family look for ways to bring money so they will have a say in the family. And then there's something that happens when people depend on you. So humans naturally enjoy dependence. Human beings, both male and female, enjoy dependence. If people are depending on you, there's this feel good you get by depending. You try everything possible not to let them break. free from depending on you. You getting it? So they just allow this, and then the younger sibling or whoever that is like the heir or the breadwinner enjoys the dependence. And they don't even want anybody to even rise for them. And then it spirals to bitterness. Because if your younger sibling is getting it right, is getting money, is giving money to the house, what's the whole true in it bad means? But then the parent doesn't see anything wrong in it. It can foster bitterness and resentment in the family. It can foster
Hmm.
bitterness and resentment. And so people think bitterness and resentment is one spiritual attack. It's not. It's just one singular act, and you will not even know that you've been that bitter for a long time. And then, like I used to tell somebody, if you want to avoid being a murderer, immediately you start getting bitterness against some other person, start working towards that bitterness. Because it's only a matter of time you will kill the person.
Hmm.
So we see family, a lot of bitterness, children that they were growing up, they were friends, they were pals, they could eat with anybody. Now they're all growing up, the whole socioeconomic factor is affecting them. One person seems to be doing better than the other person. And then family will always be family, parents will always be parents, respecting the other person and thinking more than the other person. And so that affecting everybody. And then as a senior sibling, you feel like, okay, the person is doing another thing. You start feeling bad. You start resenting your sibling. And like I said, it's only a
Exactly.
matter of time. You start planning on how to clear them off the way so your respect will be back. So all of these things
Hmm.
still have to come down to that little social class called family. Those things we call culture, hanging cultural expectations of people. It's actually impacting a lot. As I said, there's so many men that actually hanging a lot on their neck and it's affecting them badly. You see a lot of men that are substance users, substance dependent. You think some of them are doing it with clear eyes. Some of them are not doing it because they enjoy it. They're doing it because they feel like it's an escape route. I'm not saying that should be your escape route, or that is not healthy. That is unhealthy. It will lead you into worst case scenario. One big coping mechanism, big healthy coping mechanism, just not unhealthy ones. So I'm just saying most of the cases we've seen is in line of all of this. So yeah.
Hmm. That's really, really deep. That's quite deep. And I was also thinking, in this part of the world, apart from the fact that we are communal, this thought of family is everything, but permit me to say peace of mind is everything, okay? Because
Okay.
I think blood only makes people related. But for someone to be called a family, it goes deeper than that. But I see
Mm.
no reason why people will share same bloodline or whatever it is called, and they'll still plunge a relative of theirs into the deep pool of mental illness. It makes no sense about it. And more often of this time, you hardly see them assume responsibility or even be accountable for whatever thing they're doing. It will
And
always
people
be
involve
either
any role in loss and
exactly,
parentification, any role in loss
exactly,
and parentification. And then aside from all of this financial economical part of it, some persons actually experience real hard time traumatic events. Some men actually away from family, in family, around family, outside of family, they really experience long like prolonged exposure to traumatic events and because
exactly.
of
That is
the expected man of so they don't even talk about it. They don't even say anything about it. Even as aged as they come, they wouldn't want to talk about it, you know. And
hmm,
so the thing is, it still sits there. I was supposed to see someone, so the person said he has been sad for a while. He's been sad for a period of time, but he can't really place hold of what the sadness is all about, and he feels he wants to end it all. That's
hmm,
committing suicide. And I'm like, okay, let me listen to you. Let just tell me a story, like how have you been managing this? And then you realize that this person has lost a lot of things and lost property, lost loved one, and they didn't give themselves grace to process, to grieve, which is supposed to be
hmm.
human to give yourself time to grieve. They didn't grieve those losses. They just moved on. They didn't process their emotions, they didn't process their thoughts, they just moved them in, making now. And so maybe they were using other things, drinking, going out with friends, marketing. And so you know what happens when someone has repressed their emotions for a long time? You know what happens? It's just a matter of time. And just one day, there's one almost significant trigger, and then the person is gone. Like, ah, you see, it's supposed to get money now. I'm supposed to be jolly good fellow. And then the person dies. You know that over time, the prolonged cases of the person repressing the emotion, suppressing the thought, not sharing, not processing, not breathing, just anything that happens there, I've moved on, I've moved on, I've moved on. And you clearly don't move on. Your brain was just recording for you. And so one day you wake up and say, I'm feeling sad, but I don't know why I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling depressed, but I don't know why I'm feeling depressed. I feel like I want to end it off, but I can't really lay hold of why I want to end it. You know, so yeah, it's quite complicated. So I don't know if we'll
Hmm.
start rounding up because it's almost an hour and my phone is actually getting pretty low.
Wow. Wow. Hmm. This is really deep. It's getting deeper by the minute. Well,
Another conversation. Okay.
indeed. And so I think it's safe to say sometimes for some of these men, they are always on their own. And I may not necessarily blame them because we live in a society where a lot of people find the light or take the light in bonding over gossiping about others. Yeah. For some, let's say they are from a dysfunctional home where most of these triggers and traumas, are actually originated, and they want to go out there to seek solace. Where else would they go? This brings us to a religious center. We are very religious in this part of the world. It's either you
Yeah.
belong to a particular church or a Christian denomination, or you belong to a particular Muslim um, religion, right? Either you're practicing Christianity or you're practicing Islam in this part of the world. These are the common religion and the most outstanding religions we have here. But unfortunately, having these are supposed to be like your brethren, like your family outside blood, the brother or sister you never have. But it's a pity that even in such community, from my personal interaction with many young men who were, you know, I would call them strong and brave, yes, for them to speak up because it takes a lot of bravery and courage for someone to speak up, especially a man,
Very true.
South African man, to speak up when he's feeling vulnerable.
Mm.
They will tell they've not been beaten just once, they've been beaten twice, even thrice in such community, I think in the religious community. They say gone are the days when problem shared is half solved. Now a problem shared is a topic for conversation, a topic for
Yeah.
idle gossiping. So for people who have been a victim of such idle gossip, how would they ever want to open up again? To an extent, would you blame them for licking their wounds in silence until either death comes or they take their life themselves? Because it
Okay,
appears like
so
no one cares.
I would always say, and I'll always emphasize that if you feel everybody around you, family, friends, loved ones, they use your story as social media tweet, then that's why you have professionals. Because professionals will not just
Exactly.
share your story and mention your name. So why is confidentiality, right? That's why you have professionals. So if your friends and your loved ones and your family are the type that use your story for tweets or use your story for TikTok video and all of that, that's why you have professionals. No
Yes.
professional goes about talking about a particular individual, mentioning your name. The worst the professional can do is to write about your condition anonymously, and nobody knows what
Hmm.
the person is talking about. All of the cases I've cited here, didn't mention any name. And even if I mention it,
Hmm.
it's just that you don't know the person I'm talking about. And I will not mention. I can only give stories without ever mentioning it. You never hear me mention
Hmm.
name or work anywhere, so you don't even have a clue or trace of who I'm talking about.
Hmm.
That's where confidentiality comes in. And that's one, so seek professional help. Nobody's going to put your wounds out there. No professional is going to do that. And then there's what we call alternative forms of therapy. Alternative form of therapy, one of which is journaling.
Okay.
Journaling is a healthy practice where you write your thoughts, you write the emotions associated with the thoughts, you write about them, you read them, you try to understand, you retrospect, and then you introspect everything. So journaling is one. Another form of alternative therapy is reading self-help books. There are persons that have gone through maybe worse cases that you've gone through and they decided to write it in a book and sell. There are other persons that maybe they didn't write, but they decided to do podcasts about it on YouTube. I get it. So each time it's human. Each time you listen to someone that have one time experienced something you have or currently experiencing, there's a connection, there's a bonding with you. So you can listen to those people, read their books. You could walk through, with the help, the recommendations they'll be given in their books, because definitely there'll be recommendations. Because when you read those books, you see yourself through the lens of the book, and then you want to know how did this person survive, and then those the survival skills could actually help an alternative for my parents. And as well see those kind of self-help in movies, right? So reason why people see movies and they cry and fall and everything, not like the movie was that deep. Of course, we know it's acting, but the emotions surrounding this movie could resonate directly with them. Now, for example, let me not go far. If if rape victim reaches out to me, and then I'm taking that person through therapy, I usually recommend a book. That if the person is a book person, I recommend Joyce Meyer's book for the person. Now, why do I recommend Jasmine Husband? It's not because she's a pastor, it's not because she's a therapist, it's not because she's a psychiatrist, she's not even a medical practitioner. Now, I recommend that
Hmm.
book because she has similar experiences and even worst case scenarios of what you just experienced. Jasmine was
Yeah.
raised stubbornly. She was married and divorced. She was abused by her father. Can you get it? It's just recently that
Yeah.
she got to be. So all of those things. So when someone that has been actually reads from someone in industry and gets that recommendation, it serves as a new form of hope for them,
Hmm.
right? So for persons that
Yeah.
are living in times that are giving them a lot of trouble, I would say, okay, since you don't have money to have prolonged therapy sessions, get She Stood to Conquer.
Hmm.
She Stood to
Yes, I
Conquer is a book that tells, let me see, read it before, but that's how you have to stay through the pain to ensure that you achieve what you want to achieve eventually. So in cases of maybe teenagers or adolescents that are in homes that are not functioning very well, and then they keep complaining, mom did this to me, dad did this to me, I want to cut my lid and walk, I want to I tell you, go and read that book, she still conquer. And so you will learn how to stay till you conquer in good and healthy habits, not in the ones that will
hmm.
make you from to fire. That is one.
Yeah.
Then for persons that are using substances, and maybe at behavioral addiction level. Sometimes we recommend books like Atomic Habits. Now,
Hmm.
what those books you recommend, are you recommending to go and learn how to speak English? No. They're recommending them because you know that there are practical insights in those books that can help them, in addition to all of the therapy sessions you take them through. So I miss the therapy sessions because you might not have first-hand experience as a therapist, but then there is somebody that has curbed their experiences into the book that can help the person. If as a
Hmm.
therapist I can share my personal story with you and tell you how what you're going through, you have gone through them, you would want to relate to me more than any other person because you feel like this my therapist understands me. I get it's normal human nature. So those things I just mentioned are alternative forms of therapy. Journaling.
Hmm.
Journaling has been proven to be very effective over time. I do journaling myself as well. If I get so drowned in
Hmm.
certain thoughts, emotions, I journal. It helps me understand more, understand the emotions and to process my thoughts and thoughts so I don't get drowned. So yes, those are alternative forms of therapies.
Hmm. Wow. This is really splendid, Alex. Really, thank you so much. The
Thank
expertise
you.
you've shared with us cannot really be quantified in terms of value and impact. It is really clear
Mhm.
that for us to break the stigma around men's mental health, it requires a collective effort.
It
Both men
requires, like,
and
yes,
women
community effort,
every
collective effort.
individual. Okay, so before we wrap up, what brief message would you like to leave our audience with? Whether the men themselves on how to take care of themselves, how to reach out for help, as well as family and friends, where their help or assistance may be needed. So, what brief message would you like to leave with us, please?
Okay, so before I give the brief message, I would love to say one of the ways we can break stigma surrounding mental health is we define strength. We have to
Yeah.
intentionally redefine what strength means to us. So even
Mm.
in mental health, there's what we call person-centered approach or client-centered approach. That is because we've come to realize that not every not every 10 persons present with the same symptoms at the same time. I reckon. So it might be Y
Yeah.
for this person, it might be Z for this person, it might be J, it might be K. But then all of them are presenting major depression, right? But their symptoms are quite varying, even though we have traditional symptoms that we use to classify them as major depression or this illness or that illness. So we have to define what strength means to us as individuals, as families, as society. What does strength mean to us? That's one.
Mm.
The next thing we need to integrate mental health into healthcare. We need to intentionally integrate mental health into healthcare. We have a lot of HMOs in Nigeria. How many HMOs add therapeutic intervention to their packages? It's only high blood pressure, blood sugar, even surgery. There are very few surgeries that include in the HMO packages. So we have to intentionally include mental health packages into healthcare. And then finally, to men out there, we are not saying you should become victims. Of course, we want you to be emotionally resilient and build emotional strength. We are only saying that at any point where it feels like you are overwhelmed or being distressed, that you should speak to somebody. Speaking to somebody doesn't mean going to speak to your enemy. You should be able to know who's your lover, and who's your enemy.
Thank you.
And while you speak to them, you should also understand that not everybody will provide solution to what you're doing. The truth remains that if you come to my office, the first thing that happens in my office is talk therapy. And talk therapy means you're going to tell me everything that is happening. So at talk therapy, I'm not preparing any solution. I'm only trying to listen to understand from which point you're coming. And then lastly, I want to say to Nigerians and to Africans at large, we have a listening problem. We have a listening problem. It's affecting us, it's affecting the relationship we have with our children, the relationship we have with our spouses, the relationship we have with our friends. We have a listening problem. There's one between listening and hearing. There's a big difference between listening and hearing. And so somebody is sharing their problem with you. You are busy looking for suffering award.
Mhm. Mm.
So I'm telling you, I'm not eating today. You say, I don't know because you never check the news. Then don't you never check.
Mm.
So you're clearly looking for a because award, you're looking for a suffering award, which is not used. If as an individual, aside from me being a professional, I'm sharing a problem with you, and you're cutting in with too many advices that I did not ask you for, you will never see me talk about my problem to you again because you're shutting me from being vulnerable. Apparently telling me that I'm stupid. So the first thing you can do to anybody at any point in time that wants to share their distress with you is to offer them a listening ear. A listening ear, active listening is verbal and non-verbal. A listening ear is just keep quiet, keep your advice to yourself till the person asks you if you have anything to say. Just listen. And of course, I have to understand that not everybody knows how to listen. Not everybody is trained to be an active listener. And then not everybody has the emotional strength to listen to other people's emotional stories. If you think you cannot bear the brunt of listening to this person, you could refer the person to someone. But I really would love to want to help you. But at the moment, I don't have the emotional strength to listen. You just allow the person go. Not immediately let him start talking. You bring your own experience, put inside. bring your brother and put himself. Nobody's sharing details and everything. Nobody's giving the most suffered award of the year 2025. So yes, we have to understand that everybody have their battles and have their strength and where they felt like they've been disturbed and troubled. The best you can do to any individual is to listen. Listen without being judgmental. Listen without being judgmental. Listen without being judgmental. So a fellow man comes to you and tell you, "No guy, I'm not tired. I think I need to end it all." You say, "Ah, no, no, no. Why? Oh yeah, now take a drink and I'm dying. I'm not going to listen to that." No, that is you are sponsoring that suicidal.
Yeah.
The best you can do is to listen until they get asked to give an input.
Hmm.
So if you think it's a joke, something sarcasm does not call for some people. Your sarcasm is not required for some people. What is going to tell you? I'm tired of life. I think, and yeah, hey, not tired. Oh, go now. I'm not having the one for this step. It's not a body. You know, to you, it's a joke, but it's not supposed to be. Because you don't know what your comments might have been enforced in that person's mind. Using the way the mind what we see all the kind of elements. So please do that.
Wow. Thank you so much. It reminds me of the trend that we had of recent. We listen, we don't judge.
Yeah, we should
Okay.
really.
All right,
Yeah,
so
so lastly, I'm already at 5%. Lastly, like I said, I started a series on how different mental health conditions present in men.
mhm,
So you could scroll through my profile on LinkedIn and get to read. We talk about substance use, we talk about depression, we talk about suicidal ideation and all, and then I'll continue till Friday because tomorrow will be like the last week.
mhm.
So I'll just extend one Monday to Saturday. So you can follow, you can read through, you can share with other people that you think the information will be helping.
Wow.
So thank you so much, Madam Patience, for the opportunity to share with your audience.
Yeah,
And to everybody that joined the call, thank you so much. You could share. I hope you've learned one thing or another. You could also let us know in the comments. If you drop a question on the comments, I'll go in the comments answering your questions. So thank you. Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's all the time we will be having with you all today, our dear gentlemen and the supportive ladies of LinkedIn. We thank you all for tuning in today and also participating in the conversation. It means a lot. If you
Thank you.
have anything to say, if you have or you would like to continue the conversation, just like what Alex said, please, it's very important to learn more about men's mental health. It doesn't stop here. But we battle every even beyond the month of June. So feel free all time to approach so that you can check out the research she'll be sharing um, on her page from time to time. She started a series on mental health for the past week. So you can go there and catch up on what has been happening there so far. So that you can learn more about survival tips bordering on men's mental health. And of course, not just men's mental also have our gender, of course, so that the women don't speak for gender and children and knowledge. Everyone, everyone, everyone has mental health. So we thank you very much for streaming in for today's show and you find your way to a separate conversation, still bordering on our mental health, our well-being, as well as our career growth. I will say that please, ladies and gentlemen, take good care of your mental health. Take care of your mental health today and always, always, always prioritize your well-being. Goodbye.